That's it. So welcome to the Enchantment Hour. So how has your week been, Philippa? You froze. That's a good start. That's it. You froze then. I thought that's a good start.
This is just us, isn't it? It doesn't matter how hard we
It
try.
is. Oh, just close that up.
Brilliant.
So, what do you want to go through what we're going to discuss today? Because it's one that you came up with, wasn't it, this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, for anybody who's not seen us before or doesn't know Maxine or myself personally, my name's Philippa Woodsford. I am a medium, a holistic therapist, a spiritual healer, and I also work with holistic therapy, hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, that kind of thing as well. And I am an author of a book called Curse Daggers. And I'll let Maxine introduce herself in just a second. Excuse me. We decided today we were going to talk about self-worth, mainly because a lot of the clients I have had lately have also come to me with different levels of lack of self-worth, or not aware that they don't have much self-worth. So Maxine and I, we often have these little chats sort of in between, and we thought, because of the work that we do and the clients that we've both seen recently, it would be a really good one to start with this morning. So
Yeah,
I'll let you
definitely.
introduce yourself, Maxine. And
Yep. Well, I'm Maxine Brown, and I am a life coach and a hypnotherapist, and I've also written a couple of books. 31 Days Life Changing Journal, which is basically my story, and then at the end of it, it explains how to use a journal and how it's helped me. And then I've also done a year journal, which has got a full affirmations and areas for your positivity. And end of each month, it's got a breakdown so you can go back on what happened last month and what's happening, what you're looking forward to this month, which was quite good because this morning I've been doing that for January, which was a bit of an eye opener.
I can imagine yours is 3 or 4 pages long this month.
I could have gone on forever this morning. I thought, 'cause it says, where did it go well? And I went, ooh, where would you like me to
Oh,
start?
yes. Did you start at 6 o'clock and carry on?
But it's out of my head. That's the main
Oh,
thing.
bless you. Yeah, definitely. And that's the big thing, isn't it? It's getting it out of your head, getting it
Yeah,
into perspective by putting it down on paper.
that's it.
Absolutely. Massive.
Definitely.
I will apologise to anybody watching in advance. I'm yawning my head off this morning. It's not because I'm tired. I had a day off work yesterday. It's because Maxine's stressed and she needs healing. And when people need healing, I naturally start to yawn as the healing flows. So I do apologise.
Oh dear, it's very true. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, bless you. Busy month. So hopefully this is streaming on certainly my groups and my page. I'm trying to get it on my YouTube channel at the minute. I'm not 100% sure whether it's streaming today. It didn't last week. Didn't bother last week. Just thought, no, we'll not bother. But you should be on Maxine's
It
pages
is.
and groups as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's lovely. So where do you want to start, Maxine? And obviously anybody watching, please feel free. We can see when you put your comments on there. Please do feel free to join in the conversation and put your comments on. Let me see if I can get my Facebook page up as well, so I can see if any come through on there.
Yeah.
But we would love your interaction. We'd love to hear your stories, or kind of hear things that resonate with you, anything that we talk about. If that resonates with you, we'd love to have your input on that. I think that's something that we're sort of both really keen on promoting with this, isn't it? As audience participation.
Yeah. Sorry. That's it. Just trying to get the chat up. So we should, if anybody sends any message, it should come up onto our side so we can see it. Fingers crossed.
Lovely.
If it works.
Well, it may not.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
I'll put that on there as well. Lovely. Okay. So do you want to start then, Maxine, with sort of your ideas of what self-worth is, and and a little bit about yourself as well. You've just built up a brand new business, like you say. You've just had your 2 books published and things. How was your self-worth before you started this, and how has that changed by taking a little bit more control of your life and sort of pushing yourself out there?
Yeah, it was terrible, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was as bad as it was, but when I look back, especially when you sent the message through about what we're going to discuss this week, I realised how bad it was. And everything was about everybody else, and I was like on the back burner a lot of the time. And I must admit, over the last probably year and a half, 2 years, probably a few more than that, I've realised that I need to make sure I'm okay as well,
Yeah.
because if you're not, you can't carry on, and you can't do, and especially I can't do the job I'm doing now, because I need to be able to make sure I'm fine to be able to then help others.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm not selfish, but it can come across as being selfish, because I will say no to something that I don't want to do, and I don't feel it's right for me to do anymore.
Yeah.
And I have no qualms in doing that any longer. Where before I used to feel really guilty if I ever said no to anybody. But you've got to sometimes take a step back and just think of yourself, and then everything will open up, I feel now, and I've
Yeah.
realized that. And so yeah, it has changed me an awful lot. And I take time out when I need to take time out. I'll go for a walk when I need to, and I won't let anybody walk all over me, which I had done in the past. And that's why I got out of the relationship I was in
I've frozen again.
many years ago.
Good.
So yeah, what about yourself?
Yeah.
How would you,
Yeah.
what
Definitely.
would you?
And I think, yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I am a people pleaser. 100%. Never realised it until a few years ago. And even when I did realise it, took a long time to sink in. Do you know what I mean? And you find yourself, you're in a situation, somebody may be really horrible to you, and then they ask you if you can help them out, and you go, yeah, of course I will. And then you kick yourself afterwards and you go, and it's not about being mean to people. It is, like you say, it's about allowing yourself to go, actually, if I do that, I'm going to be compromising myself, either my principles or my time or my energy, or, there's lots and lots of different things. I mean, I've always been the sort of person up until very recently, I looked after my in-laws, and, I've always been at home raising the children and trying to work my job around them, even to the point where I put everybody else's needs before mine. And then I viewed like my job, and I guess everybody else did, as kind of like the extra thing, where actually was bringing money in, I was building my career, and I put me on the back burner a lot of the times. Now, luckily, I have an amazing husband who, unfortunately, if I don't say something to him, he'll just kind of truck along. But if I say, help, he'll go, okay. And he's there, and he's actually very good sometimes at pointing out where he'll say, Philippa, you need to say no, or Philippa, actually, you're being walked all over there. Don't take that. And he will often see it before I do.
That's good.
And I think I've more recently, I mean, I remember when I turned 40, I felt like I was going to the gallows, Maxine. I don't know about you. 30 didn't bother me at all.
I was the other way around. I was 30, really upset me. 40 and going, and 50, and I'm not bothered. Yeah, no, I don't bother anymore. It doesn't bother me. But 30 really upset me.
Yeah, 40th, I was devastated. That's it. My youth's over. My life's over. I'm middle-aged. And you know what? Actually, my 40s have been the best years of my life, because I've developed my self-worth, and I'm not as worried about putting everybody else's needs before mine. I'm quite capable of going, I need a little bit of time out, or actually that doesn't suit me now. I'm not quite so bothered about saying that to people, and I've had a couple of people lately, and they're trying to sort of get me to do, platforms or parties or whatever. And I'm trying to squash it in. And normally I'd go, right, I'll move everything around. I'll exhaust myself. I'll do that. And now I've gone, that's not an appropriate week for me. It's not that I'm turning down work, but if you'd like me to do it, we're going to have to find a different time to do that. And it feels really good, doesn't it?
It is. It is. I do that with my diary. I have a set times when I will work, and the rest of the time is my time to do what I enjoy doing and spend time with my husband and do different things. And previously, I would have dropped everything and said, "Yeah, of course, I'll fit you in." But no, you have to. I feel that now it's my time, and I have to be really strict with myself. And if somebody really, really struggles, then yes, of course, I will do. So.
We've got,
just
hi,
have
Jack. Somebody
it
messages.
works.
It messages. Thank you, Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Yeah, and kind of sort of Jack joining there was coming at a point when I was going to mention, relationships. And this doesn't have to be marriages or long-term relationships like that. It can be relationships with your parents, or relationships with your children or your family. And, we've both had different scenarios of relationship problems where you accept other people's behavior, or you accept other people's treatment of you. And excuse me, there's like an old proverb, isn't it, where, just because you can't see my self-worth doesn't mean I don't have any. And that actually really resonates with me, because sometimes people will treat you in a certain way because they don't see your self-worth. So that's that circle of sometimes you don't see your own, so they don't see it because it's not being pointed out, and other times they don't see it, so you don't feel you've got any.
Yeah, and
You
you
know,
just carry on plodding along and doing what everybody's expected of you,
yeah,
and you don't look at yourself and think, this isn't quite right for me.
yeah,
But
absolutely,
you've got to
absolutely,
stand the ground, and
yeah,
you've got to make the changes.
yeah,
You really do, and you've got nothing to lose, and don't ever, and nobody should ever feel guilty about doing that, or and make it looking after themselves, because at the end of the day, if you don't look after yourself, you can't, as I said before, you can't help others, but you also will be so sad that you won't want to carry on, and you won't live your best life, and it's you've only
yeah,
got one. And so
yeah,
that's why you really do need to take a step back and look at things and write it down. I think that's a really good way of getting everything, to see where where what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy, and you've got to make look at those things and make a list of them. I think that helps an awful lot of people when they're not too sure about things.
yeah, massively. I think I've just been working with a client recently, actually, who was in kind of a whole life-changing situation, and there was a whole relationship, job, moving, that there was so many different things. And he seemed so overwhelmed. And that was one of the things that we discussed. Write it all down. Write what's working for you. Write what's not working for you.
Yeah,
Write where your plan is to be in 5 years' time. And then look at what you're doing now and how that's going to take you towards that plan, or is it going to hold you back from
yeah,
that plan?
that's it.
And I mean, you're better than me. I used to write a diary. God, I used to write a diary for years and years, and then I got out of the habit, and I find it really hard to get back into. But actually, you are right. You point out a lot of things to yourself, don't you, when you
You
write
do.
things down?
Definitely, yeah. You can work things out yourself, and I think what you can do, you can prioritize, and you can write down, what's the most important, what, and then you can see what you need to be doing every day, and especially what makes you happy every day. And then the things that you don't like, you can put those in between, just because everybody has to do things that they're not very keen on, but just
Yeah,
make sure that your side that you enjoy doing is much bigger than the side of the jobs that you don't, and the people that you need to see, and not giving yourself enough time and things like that. So make
yeah.
sure every single day that you do give yourself some of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I think I've got a couple of messages that are coming through on this side, but I can see them sort of flashing on my screen, but I can't see
Yeah,
the actual message that's coming up. But that's not come up on there either. It's just sort of pinged but not come. So if anybody is messaging, their message on the Facebook page, try and message via the stream, because then Maxine and I can see it. And obviously, Jack, we're quite happy for you to, if you want to talk, if you wanted to sort of give any of your experiences, please do join in. It would be lovely to hear. But I think a lot of self-worth problems can kind of date back to our childhood. Sometimes it can date back to our parents, or sometimes grandparents, or experiences at school, isn't it? And it's that fear
yes,
of, if I'm not a people pleaser, if I don't do what they want me to do, then I'm going to be abandoned, or I'm going to be neglected, I'm going to be left. They're not
yeah,
going to love me, and that's a sad one, because so many of us suffer with that for various different reasons. If you don't do what somebody else is asking you to do, then you're displeasing them. And as children, sort of from a psychological point of view, children will well, as we both know, if a child's abused, they will still love that parent more than anything. They will protect that parent, because it's a survival instinct, isn't it? That parent's the only one they
yes,
know. That's the only protection they have.
yeah,
So in which case, if they can please that parent and make them happy, so they're not cross with them anymore, then they're gaining that approval, and they know that they're safe and they're loved.
yeah,
And they don't realise that actually the fault is with the parent and not with them. And
that's right.
unfortunately, it's something we don't grow out of. You think as you grow into an adult, you would grow out of that, because you're not so dependent on that love and approval, and you haven't got that survival with them, because you're able to look after yourself. But actually, from a psychological point of view, we don't grow out of that, do we?
No,
You know?
and I think it's the same as being when you were if you were bullied at school as well.
Yeah,
That is amazing how that can live with you all the way through, so that you'll end up going into your teens and your 20s and 30s. And I mean, if you don't look at it, it will carry on with you for the rest of your life. And so you
absolutely.
will always be the person that says, the yes person, really, because you're
Yeah,
frightened of what could happen.
yeah,
And it's, if you can, especially with parents, if they can see a child being bullied, get it like stopped and get them to speak about it straight away, because
yeah,
otherwise it will definitely go throughout the life with them. You need to like put a
absolutely.
stop on it straight away, because yeah, it does, really does, can affect. as you're growing up?
Have things in my other job at work, we sign on, and because we're all working from home, we have a Teams where we keep in touch with each other via Teams with team leaders and things like that, which actually works better being in an office, because in an office you have to get from your desk and go and speak to people or call people over, where on Teams everybody can continue what they're doing. But I've noticed sometimes you sign on and nobody responds to you. Now that's fine. It's not actually a problem. You don't need people to respond. Other times you sign on, you'll get 5 or 6 hearts where everybody's sort of giving a heart as if to say hello. I've noticed, personally, on those days when there's no hearts coming, automatically you start that shift a little bit. A little bit. Nobody's happy that I'm here. Okay, and it's not the case, because doing the job that I do, we work with medical stuff, we work with hospitals, everybody's so busy and they're probably going, all right, okay, she's here, great, that leaves my shift. But the fact that they haven't put the heart on, you kind of feel a bit low. And if you get loads of hearts, you're like, oh, everybody's really pleased to see me, that's lovely. And it's ridiculous. But, this is where sometimes Facebook comes in. And I've noticed people put a picture of their tea and everybody loves it. Somebody puts up, I'm feeling really low today, I'm not feeling great, or I could really do with a friend, or I'm a bit lonely, and people ignore it. And it's not because they don't want to know, they don't know how to respond, or they sort of go, right, okay, they prefer the happy stuff. And then that person who's reached out then feels absolutely distraught that they've reached out and nobody's responded.
Yes.
But the people who haven't responded haven't looked at it like that. So it's not that they're being mean. And that brings your self-worth down as well, doesn't it?
It does. And I think also, social media can do so much harm with self-worth as well, because you see all these happy family pictures, or going out, couples going out and having meals and things like that. And I think sometimes when you're feeling really low and things aren't going quite as well as you want them to go, when you start seeing all these types of pictures, it can affect you. And people need to realise that's probably just 1 hour of their day. You don't, look at the other 23 hours. They might be feeling exactly the same as you are, but they just want to make a big thing of that 1 hour or one thing that's happened. And so don't always believe and what's happening around you, because it can be very false.
Yeah, absolutely. You see a picture, you think somebody's got an amazing life and you haven't. And actually, that's just a snapshot, isn't it? That's a split second of somebody's life. And we can all put a smile on for 2 seconds, can't we? We can all put a bit of a show on. It doesn't mean, like you say, that that's kind of it forever, is it?
No, that's it.
Or that they're any better than you are, or somebody's house might be nicer than yours, but doesn't mean they're happy,
No. But I think, when you were saying about the job you do now, how they send hearts and things like that, I remember working for somebody, and it was, they used to have a screen, because we all worked in the big office, but during the week, it used to pop up onto your screen to ask how you were feeling. And if you were feeling, you had to, it was on a range sort of thing from, I think it was 1 to 10. And if you were anything below, I think it was about 6 or 7, then one of the managers used to come up and have a chat with you and take you to and have a coffee and everything. And that was quite nice, because they used to be able to keep an eye on all the team, but not be in your face. And you had to answer this, because it kept popping. Because to begin with, sometimes I used to be working, and I think, oh, go away, carry on and everything. And it kept popping up, so you had to be, answer it. And so it was nice to, it's just when you've got other people checking in. And I think that's good. If you've got somebody that's a bit low and things like that, and not very good at explaining how they're feeling, if you can just do a check-in every now and again, you don't have to be in their face or anything like that. It's just, if somebody knows that you're out there caring, it makes a huge difference.
It makes a massive difference, doesn't it? It does. And I think, one of the things that we have to learn is, if you're not lucky enough to have that. So Jack's just put on here, the social media aspect of life now doesn't count with support group. Yeah, that's absolutely right. You can find support groups and stuff. I've completely forgotten what I was about to say. What was that point about? But that's kind of along those sorts of lines, isn't it? Where you can access support groups now. You can do it more anonymously. You don't physically have to go and have a look now. Jack's right. On Facebook, or some of the social media channels, you can reach out almost anonymously, can't you?
You can.
And do that. Definitely, which is lovely. But what was the point I was going to make before? I can't remember where I'm starting. I did have a valid point.
It was when I was saying about asking for help, and we were talking about just to send a message to people, if for them not to feel.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you don't have that support either in a work environment or a friend environment or anything like that, one of my big things with my clients is learn to support yourself. You know,
Yes.
there's a saying, isn't there, about the bird never worries about whether the branch underneath her will snap or not, because she knows she can always rely on her own wings.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I'm always pushing my clients with, and I do push them, and I'm like, you don't need their approval. All right, you know, you might find that you're trying to fight for your parents' approval all the time. You've probably got it, but they don't tell you that you've got it, so you don't feel like you've got it. But actually, in their heads, they'll be like, well, she should know that, or he should know that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the same, like if you have a bad experience with a relationship or with a friend, or a bad experience at work, like you were saying, bullying, that sort of thing. It's actually all right, and it's actually healthy to be your own best friend. You
Yeah.
know, we spend so much time looking in the mirror, and you look in the mirror and you go, oh God, I look fat today. Oh, look at the bags under my eyes. God, I look horrendous. How often do we get up and go, you look bloody marvellous this morning, you're cooking on gas. You know, you look great in those new jeans. You don't do it, and yet you
No.
wouldn't walk up to a best friend or get up and look at your partner in the morning and go, "But you look fat today." You just don't.
Yeah.
And if you
No.
do, there's something not right.
Yeah, you're not quite right.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jack's saying there, it's a generation thing as well, about people wanting to open up. We are
Definitely.
of a generation now where we will talk a little bit more. We are a bit more aware. We are more accepting. Where I know my parents and my grandparents, everything was done behind closed doors. Oh, you don't tell people that you're struggling. You don't
No.
tell people that you're feeling low. You don't show anybody. You know, you put your lipstick on and you go out, you puff your chest out and you go out and you pretend that everything's absolutely fine, no matter how you feel.
Yeah.
And it's not healthy, is it?
No, no, it's not, because that's when it starts bottling up inside you and everything, and it makes you poorly.
Yeah,
Physically, you will become physically ill, and that's why
yeah,
say you take time out when you need to. You go off for a walk if you need to. Go and have some time alone. Go and off and meditate. I mean, and things like that. But just be really good with yourself and look at yourself, and again, what we've just said, what's not making you happy and what is making you happy. And if it's not making you happy, you really need to look and stop doing it,
yeah,
because otherwise you'll carry on pushing on that and doing that, and you'll just get more and more unhappy, and then you won't love yourself. And you've got to love yourself first before you can then go to and have a proper relationship either at work or within your home life and things like that. And that's the thing to think of.
yeah. I think a lot of people say, two halves make a relationship. And I'm always, no, you need to be two fulls. You need to be
You do.
two full people. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that nobody will love you if you don't love yourself. But it is harder to have a well balanced, harmonized relationship if one of you's always sort of looking for that little bit more. I don't know whether attention's the right word, but security, I think, would probably be the word.
Yeah.
If one of you's always insecure or has a few broken pieces, sometimes meeting the right person can help fix that. But actually, you don't need to have somebody in your life to fix yourself. You've
No,
got
definitely
to
not.
learn to rely on your own wings, don't you?
Yeah.
And fix yourself. But that doesn't mean not reaching out, not talking to people, not sort of looking for help. It just means understanding, acknowledging, and realizing there's a problem, and then
Yeah.
working on it, which is actually really empowering, as we both know in
Yeah.
different things that we've been through. Taking a little bit of control of your own life and your own thoughts, and no matter how horrendous a situation is that you've been through, being able to take a little bit of control for yourself is so empowering, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh,
Massive.
definitely. And you feel so much happier, and you
Yeah,
can do so much more then, because then you can carry on and enjoy your life because you've conquered that. And I think if then anything else comes along, you think, oh, it's all right, I can go and deal with that. And then
absolutely. Yeah,
and
I
it
can get
makes
through that.
exactly, it makes everything seem so much easier to sort out within your life. And you'll think of things, I think, oh, that's nothing, I can do that. I've done whatever you've gone through, you've sorted out and you've got it straight. And
Yeah,
yes, you'll have blips, but the thing is, when you do have a blip, it's remembering, what did I do before to sort myself out and make, love myself again and feel really good again. And you just go back and repeat that. And
yeah.
each time it'll just get smaller and smaller, and then you can cope with anything that anybody throws at you eventually.
And I think as well, learning, you know, as we said before, just because somebody else doesn't see your self-worth or doesn't appreciate your self-worth doesn't mean that you don't have it. I think
Exactly.
sometimes as humans, we all seem to, and I find this with people who have sort of repeated relationship patterns, whether it be with parents or partners or friends or work colleagues, where they're repeating the same patterns all the time. They're always the underdog and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And it's because you have to acknowledge that, you have to break that cycle. And we very often will attract ourselves to people that don't see our self-worth, because we think if we can turn them and make them love us or make them like us or be accepted by them, then that makes my self-worth even better. Where
Yes.
I've sort of reached an age where I go, if you don't see my self-worth, then I'm actually not going to waste my time on you. I don't need to turn your opinion of me. What I
Yeah.
need to do is surround myself, choose my tribe, and surround myself with people who love me for who I am and who accept
Yes.
me for who I am, warts and all. And if those people aren't around at this particular moment, then I'm quite happy to do that for myself. And that's, I think, the hardest thing to do. I think we are innately programmed to want that approval from other people,
Yeah,
aren't
you
we?
want to be in the gang, really, don't you? You
Yeah,
don't, and you don't want to be the one that's on the outside looking in. You want to be involved in it. But
yeah.
if those people aren't accepting you for you, then don't be in that gang. Go and find the
No.
gang, 'cause there will be a gang there somewhere for
Build
you.
your own gang. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
And you pull the people in that are going to help you. Don't ever take the just because you want to be part of it and then not enjoy it, and you feel awful then, because
Yeah,
you will walk away and go and think, well, what have I got out of today? Or, got out of that meeting, because you'll be trying to fit in all the time, and
absolutely.
you're becoming somebody else, not yourself.
Yeah.
And that's
And
when you've got to think of yourself, you're worth an awful lot more than that. And that's the
yeah,
thing. Think of what
yeah.
you're worth of and do that.
And sometimes we sort of go, I'd rather run with the bold and the beautiful than be in the quirky gang. But actually, personally, I'd rather be myself and be in the quirky gang
Yeah,
than
definitely.
be with the bold and the beautiful. Do you know what I mean? It is finding your place, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I think I'm a massive advocate for being authentic, a massive advocate for accepting yourself for who you are, loving yourself for who you are, whatever your issues are, and definitely building your tribe around that. And sometimes as well, I mean, Jack will sort of understand this. When you come out of some sort of situation where somebody else hasn't seen your self-worth and that makes yours lower, actually what that's doing is it's closed a door. It's removed energy from your life that wasn't good for you, that wasn't working for you. And it gives you this lovely space for you to fill your life with things that are working for you and
That's
things
it.
that are better. So it's not a case of, oh, that's being awful, I'm going to grieve over it, or I'm going to be angry over it. Sometimes we have to be thankful that it's happened, because what it's done is it's removed us from a situation that wasn't working
Yeah.
or that wasn't making us feel great about ourselves. And it gives us the opportunity to then accept something nicer, better, more productive, more healthy to come in. So in a
Yeah.
way, it's something to be thankful for.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think you've got to be able to learn to just have you time, because
Yeah.
lots of people, there's an awful lot of people around that I found that they don't like being by themselves. They
Yes.
can't cope with just being by themselves. And
Love being on my
I
own.
I thoroughly enjoy it. I can always find something to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me if I haven't got people around me all the time. But I think you need to learn to do that. And
Yes.
I think that is healthy. You do need to have you time, because then you can just indulge in yourself for a bit, and you're not giving all your power and energy out to other people, because that isn't, again, healthy for yourself. And I think if you take a few hours a day or a week or anything, and just look at yourself and enjoy your own company, because that really is important.
Yeah. Jack's just put on there,
Fully
says maybe I
intense.
have fully intended staying on my own, less drama. Do you know what, Jack? That's why I'm a head witch. Honestly, I love working from home. I love my own space. I enjoy having people around me, but they're hand-picked people.
Yeah.
And I think this is what I was sort of saying about being in my 40s. You get to that point where you just think, oh, do you know what? I don't need the drama. I don't need all that stress. Actually, I'm quite happy just, living in my own little life or whatever. But he's also put there, you know, he's working on not having an ego response. And that is some of it. We view ego as being, oh, that person's egotistical or whatever.
Yeah.
But ego is actually the part of your psyche that is meeting your needs, isn't it? And
Yes.
sometimes it's very important to know what is your need and what is a want or what is a desire, and actually meeting those needs. So keeping your ego balanced. If you see it on like the, you know, there's ego aid and there's another one that I can never remember. I don't know if you can remember what that is. And your ego sits in the middle, and you've basically got the different sides of your psyche. That you have to sort of meet everybody's needs, but it's not about meeting other people's. It's everybody's, as in those things within yourself. Makes it sound like we're all schizophrenic and there's 3 or 4 people in one, but that's not what I mean. There's all these different levels, isn't there, of your psyche, mentally,
Yes.
emotionally, physically, spiritually. I mean, you've got 7 levels to your aura. And you know what you were saying before about it making you physically ill, 75% of all illness, including cancers and things, come from stress or an imbalance in energy.
Yeah.
And we don't recognize that. So, you know, my argument as a therapist is everybody will go out and spend a fortune on having nice clothes or an expensive car or an expensive house or having their nails done because it makes them feel good if they're showing to the world that they're okay. But they don't always want to work on the internal stuff. And actually, you know, going for a massage, or as we both do, we go for counselling when we don't need it because we go, I'm just giving a check in. I'm just coming away with everybody else. I'm just making sure I'm okay. You know, sometimes you do need to spend that bit time, and it's okay to say to somebody, my diary's full, and actually have several blocks in that diary that aren't full. But what you're doing is you're making that time for you and giving yourself that time. And like you said before, it's about that power. It's about empowering yourself, taking your power back. Nobody can hurt you if you don't give them the power to hurt them.
No.
So by taking that power back, you're empowering yourself, which builds your self-worth, doesn't it?
That's it. It is. And you've got your self-worth is so important because you won't enjoy your life if you don't have that self-worth at all. Because just take the time out and think about things, and you don't have to follow the crowd. You're an individual, and I think you've just got to believe in yourself, and I think that is the biggest thing. Doesn't matter what anybody else says, as long as you believe in you, that is the main thing.
Absolutely, 100%. And this is where people who are very successful, they don't not believe in themselves. You know, I have never met a successful business person who's gone, I get up in the morning,
not sure.
a bit low. They get up and they go, I'm not accepting that the day is not going to go the way I want it to. This is the goal I've got by the end of the day, and I'm going to reach that goal. And they don't even take in any other perspective, do they? You know, it's just, well, I got up here and I'm going to be there by the end of the day, and whatever I need to do to get there, that's what's going to happen, because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, sometimes we need to all be a little bit more like that, don't we?
You do. Yeah, we definitely do. And the thing is, if you do need somebody to help you get there, ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't be ashamed of asking for the assistance and everything, but don't let everybody else tell you you can't do it, you won't do it, you're not capable of doing it, because you are. And that's the thing, is to believe that you really, if you really believe that you can do something, you will do it. I know that from the last year. I mean, and you know that from your book, because you did. I mean, when we first started talking, you spoke about having a book and wanting to write a book, and you'd got half of it done, sort of thing, and everything.
About 5.
But you said, no, I don't know if I can get it. Yes, you can. And that's it. And it came out, and it's just believing in yourself that you can do something. And you'll definitely do it.
And actually, when I published that book, you know, I thought, if I sell 1 copy, then I'm quite happy with that, because 1 person's bought it. I did think that might be family, but actually, I don't think there was 1 member of my family actually bought my book. But I remember my dad saying, are you going to give us one for Christmas? No, you tight chop. Go and buy it.
Get on Amazon and buy it.
But, you know, I didn't take offence at that anymore. It didn't mean they weren't supporting me. It just maybe you know, my dad's never read a book in his life since he left school, I don't think. You know, it doesn't mean he doesn't support me. He's really proud of me. But I did that for me. And as you know, obviously, you've sort of talked me through a lot of the process, because it was going to end up spending thousands going through these different publishing companies where
That's
I'd been
right.
looking. And actually, what made it for me wasn't the book sales. It was starting to get messages from people going, "Oh my God, I've read your book, and do you know what? That really resonates with me.
Yeah.
That really makes sense with me. I understand it from a human point of view, and you've broken everything down." Now, I had some people who did what I did with yours, who picked it up and read it cover to cover and didn't put it down in between.
Yeah.
I had other people who took weeks or months over reading and worked through it bit by bit, which was kind of how it was written to do.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, my only problem now with my other books is getting the time, but I do need to get my bum into gear. But this is it, isn't it? If you have a goal, do it. You don't have to have like a fantastic success rate at the end of it. It's
No,
more about achieving your own goals.
that's it. It's what you get out of it. And I did exactly the same. I needed to do that. And as you said, I didn't expect to sell thousands or anything like that. All I was bothered about, as long as one person it helped,
Yeah.
and that was it. And that the feedback and everything was absolutely fantastic. And I know I've helped people, and
Yeah.
that gave me a
And
huge
reached
buzz.
best author.
Yeah,
I will just point out, you reached best author.
yeah. But it gave me a buzz from doing that. But I mean, and I achieved and made myself happy. And that's so important these days, because the world isn't around making each individual person happy. You have to make yourself happy.
Yeah. And that's exactly it, isn't it? Happiness just, when people say, "Oh, such and such did that and made me feel like," "You're making me angry,"
Yeah,
and people who are controlling do that, don't they? "You're
yeah,
making me angry. You're making me treat you like this." No, that's a lack of self-control on your side. I'm not making you do anything. I'm not making somebody feel a way. Somebody might feel some way because of what I've said or what I've done, but then you come into the words of, "I'm responsible for what I say, not for what you understand," isn't it? And I think when
yes,
your self-worth's low, you will often choose to understand that that person's putting you down without realizing that, when actually that person's intention hasn't been that at all. So
yes,
just sort of like, because we'll finish up in about 10 minutes, but I wrote down a couple of things here for anybody who didn't realize that their self-worth was quite low, to maybe look at some of the behaviors that they're doing in their lives that might make them go, "Oh, actually, I didn't even realize that that was connected."
yeah,
So just before I do, Jack said, "Loved your book and could relate a lot to it," and it does link in with self-worth.
yeah. It
So
does. Very good, sir. Yeah,
absolutely.
it does. Yeah, we've
Um,
been saying that if you are in, especially if you're in a relationship and the person is saying, "You've made me do this, you've made me feel like that." No, it's them that's making you. You have got to stand up for yourself and
yeah,
think, "Do I need this? I'm worth more." And that's
yeah.
the thing. You are worth more.
And do you know
And
what? I always laugh when I don't know if they call her Cheryl Tweedy or whatever her name goes back to now. I think she's been
yeah,
married
oh
a
yeah,
couple of times, hasn't she? But obviously northeastern accent like me, and
yeah,
she did that advert, "'Cause we're worth it," and it
yeah,
always makes me laugh when you say that in a Geordie accent. But you know what? You are, whether
yeah,
that's buying yourself a face cream, whether that's giving yourself a little, a hot bath and a manicure or pedicure, whether that's taking yourself out for a walk, whether that's giving yourself time to read a book, whether that's walking away from a situation that doesn't suit you, whether it's leaving a job because that whole environment is toxic around you. It is realizing, as you've just said, you are worth more.
yeah.
100%.
And
You are
don't
worth
ever
more.
forget that. That's it. And yes, it might be a struggle and a shock to begin with, but you will sort it out, because
Yeah,
you'll have your own time. You'll be able to see what you're thinking about, and you're not going to have the negativity being thrown at
yeah,
you all the time. And that's because that's
yeah,
all that's bringing you down, is that negativity that's being fired at you. You take
yeah,
that situation away and you learn to live how you want to live, or how you want to work, and it will always work out, because
yeah,
you will get the answers,
yeah.
because you will feel so much happier. And if you're happy, you can do anything.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And it all comes back to the law of attraction with that, isn't it?
Yeah,
When you're happy, the magic happens. If you're desperately trying to lose weight, you get up every morning, you tell yourself you're fat every day, your subconscious goes, "She's fat," or "He's fat." And then it doesn't feel the need to drop that weight. If you just go about your life being happy, reduce your calories a bit, do a bit of exercise, don't over focus on it, then that will naturally come off. And it's the same with, if you're doing a job or you're in a relationship, if you are happy and your needs are being met, then it's a much more successful outcome, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah.
So, it's always something to look at. So some of the things I've written down are, I've put low sense of self-worth being your own worst enemy, which is what we were talking about before. You can be your own best friend, which is what we need to be, or you can be your worst enemy. You would not surround yourself with people who made you feel low all the time out of choice, would you? So, don't do that to yourself, basically. Codependency in relationships. If you've got low self-worth, you will always feel you can't survive without that person, won't you?
Yes, definitely. And you can.
Yeah. And then I've got fear of being abandoned or neglected, which is what we spoke about before. Sometimes your self-worth's low because if you feel you're not putting other people before you, they will reject you in some way. And actually, do you know what? That's all right. It's all right if they do reject you, isn't it? If you're not happy, okay, fair enough. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
I'm free now.
Yeah, go and do what makes me happy now.
Yeah, and people don't view it like that, do they? They view being sort of like abandoned or pushed away as, when actually they should be going, yay! Thank yourself for that one. Putting others before yourself, which is kind of what we've discussed a lot. Craving validation. And one of the things is self-shame or guilt, which goes along with that craving validation, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
I should say it's a heavy thing talking about self-worth and believing in it, and it's just something that everybody needs to look at and act on as well, because if you keep doing the same thing as you keep doing, you'll get the same back. And so you've got to just jump in and start from today. Think, no, I'm going to get my self-worth back, and you'll be amazed at how different you'll be feeling.
And it's about not accepting behavior that isn't acceptable, isn't it? One of the things I've put down here is resisting change, because as we all know, unless change is forced on us, we very often resist that change, and it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to go for it. But also we tolerate a lot of bad behaviors from other people. And actually we don't really need to do that. And sometimes those people, they might not be wicked evil people. It may be that their self-worth's really low.
And they might not realise what they're saying. Sometimes they don't even think they've done it. And I think if somebody says something to you you don't like, tell them. Be open and honest. Just say, I don't like what you've just said. I don't like the way you've just said something to me. Because, as you say, they might not realise that they're even doing it. That's just the way they are and everything. And it will shock them and think, oh, and they probably won't do it any longer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to sort of stand up and say to somebody, actually, I don't need to listen to that, or you don't need to speak to me like that, because that's not acceptable. And they might then go and look at, why are they like that? What do they accept from other people? Why do they feel that that behavior is right, when actually it could be that it's come down a long line of kind of their conditioning in life, if that makes sense, which doesn't always make it right. But, a lot of people have problems setting those boundaries, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
And, I learned over the last couple of years that actually I have to make very clear boundaries, because if you always move your boundaries, people don't respect them, because they'll know you'll always move them. But if you have your boundaries and you'll go, I'll meet you here, meet you halfway, I'm sorry, that's where the line's drawn.
Yeah.
They will either leave your life or they will meet you where you want them to meet you.
That's it. And it can be scary as well when you set your boundaries out. If you've never ever had boundaries before, and then all of a sudden you decide, no, I'm going to set these and this is how I'm going forward. It is a scary thing to do, but you will feel so much better once you've done it.
Definitely. And again, coming into writing those things down to remind yourself, yes, that's that boundary. Because sometimes we'll set a boundary and then we forget about it, don't we? We go, well, I did that on Tuesday. I don't really need to keep it going. You're like, no, you need to do it every day.
That's it.
Yeah. But Jack's right, upbringing, learned behaviours, it's like when you see naughty children at school, my husband's a teacher, and he'll see children with particular behaviour patterns, and then he'll meet the parents, and it doesn't always follow, But sometimes you'll meet the parents and go, I now understand why the child behaves the way it does.
Yeah.
And it, like I say, it's not always that way. Sometimes, the parents are very different, but sometimes it does come down that pattern, and
It
it's
does.
breaking that behavior, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the same with relationships. If you've come from, if your parents had a particular relationship, and you may go into the same type of relationship, and then all of a sudden you'll realize it's not the one I want.
Yeah.
And so that you can step back and think, no, I don't need to look at what my parents did. I want to live like this. And then
Yes.
you set your boundaries out, and from now on, this is how I'm
Yeah.
going to live. And just be brave and do it, because you can do
Yeah.
it. You don't have to keep following on the generations and how things happened before.
No.
It's now your life to go forward, and you can set the next boundaries and how you expect people to treat you.
Yeah, and we do have more choices these days, don't we? We have a lot more choices. Women
Oh,
don't have to stay in abusive relationships because they can't afford to look after themselves. Years ago, women's wages were way lower than men's. And, you were expected that if your man left, then you had to live on a very small wage and
yeah,
look after your children. And it was impossible. So sometimes, particularly women, were sort of trapped in relationships because of financial circumstances.
yeah,
Similarly with men, I think that comes down to the self-worth thing of sometimes they can be trapped in an abusive relationship because they don't want to appear as being weak, or
yes,
that they've not been able to stand up to somebody, and it's the shame and the guilt. And
yeah.
now we do have more support, we do have more choices, and I think both sexes should be a lot more able to make those choices for a healthier way forward for themselves. But we've still got a long way to go with
Oh,
that, don't we? The
totally. Yeah.
stigmas, and yeah.
And I think the main thing is to talk to somebody. Find somebody that you can talk to, because if you can, you don't need, they probably can't give you the answers again, but if you get it all out to
Yeah.
them, you will find your own answers, but it's just easier to get it spilled out of your head, and get it or black and put it into black and white, because when you see something in black and white, you'll think, oh, and you'll think it'll all start triggering, oh, I can do this and I can change that.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference. Just
Yeah,
get it out.
definitely. I think, where you write things down, I talk to myself. I'm often seen in the car, chatting away. I mean, thank God now people have like hands-free speaker phones, because, people just think that I'm on the phone. But I speak my thoughts out loud,
That's
because
it.
it's
Yeah,
how, and when you mentioned meditation before, a lot of people, and I go through this with my clients every day, people think that you have to sit for half an hour, blank your mind,
yeah.
have no thoughts. That's not what meditation is.
No, not at
It's
all.
giving yourself time and space to allow your brain to file everything away and go through it.
That's
And
it.
you do that with writing. We both do it with walking. I do
Yeah.
that with talking to myself. Even when I'm out in the fields, I'm chatting away. I walk past somebody and they're like, "Oh no," they just think I'm too. But it's about, talking to other people, talking to yourself, putting it in perspective, because when it's down on paper, it's out in the air, it sounds very different to when it's in your head.
Yes. And I think it becomes bearable and achievable once it's
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Yeah. So,
definitely. Definitely.
yes. So I think we've just about covered. I mean, we could obviously, you and I could talk about it for hours and hours,
Oh,
but we
I
don't
can
want to
talk
bore
for weeks.
everybody.
Absolutely. I think, from both of us as well, if anybody is struggling out there, they're struggling to sort of with any of their self-worth issues, then, please feel free to get in touch with either Maxine or myself. Thank you, Jack, for joining in on the comments. I know there's
Definitely.
been a few people watching who haven't joined in for comments, but it's lovely that somebody's had the confidence to do that, and I'm sure that will build. I know when I do my lives, my readings and things, you start off, nobody wants to talk, and then gradually people get used to it. But it's been lovely to have that input, Jack. It really has.
Yeah.
And as well, we're sort of quite happy as we're doing these chats to sometimes invite somebody else into them, aren't we? Who
Yeah.
can talk about their experiences and that, because we want, as we said last week, we want these not to just be professional. We want them to be like humanistic. We want them to
Yes.
be just like, in layman's terms, from one person to another. Look, we're all struggling. We all have problems. We work in this field and we've still struggled for years,
That's
haven't
it.
we? So
Yeah, it's just a normal chat, and if we can help anybody, that's why we're doing it for. And as you say, yeah, anybody wants to join us, or if they've got a conversation they think would be really relevant and useful, just to send us a message, and we can look at doing those.
absolutely.
Yeah, whatever will help anybody, and that's the main reason why we're doing it.
Yeah, open ideas all the time, aren't we?
Yeah,
And
we are.
open to input and things as well, because we want this to be for people, don't we? It's not about us,
Definitely. No, it's
it's for
just
everybody.
it's just to
Yeah.
open people's way of different change to the way people think and things like that to help. So,
Yeah.
but obviously this will go, so it'll go onto the podcast, and it'll also go onto your YouTube and my YouTube, so that people can watch it back if you haven't had time to watch it today.
Yeah. Jack's just asking for a Reiki session there, so I'll give him a quick
Yeah,
message
that's it.
afterwards. One of my favourite things, particularly for self-worth and healing. I absolutely love healing, so
Yeah,
we will come on
definitely.
with that. But yeah, it's been lovely as always to catch up with you, Maxine. It really
It has.
has, and
Likewise, we'll
yeah,
be having a chat again soon.
gosh, yeah, when you get sorted, bless you.
Yeah.
All right, well, you take care. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And for those of you who've been watching as well, please do feel free to share this round on your Facebooks or your channels, whatever way that you do that, so we can reach as many people as possible. Please do reach out to us, even if it's just a comment that you've got on something that we've discussed today or something you would like us to discuss in the future. We are always here, always.
Definitely, and we'll reply back to you as quickly as we can for you. Thanks ever so much for watching. Bye.
All right, take care.